I really don't know if any of you can speak and I'd be heard, whether there's something wrong on my computer. Mark, can you say something?
Hey, G, can you hear me?
Yes. Vesselina, can you say something?
Hi.
Good. As original. Okay, two. So I assume everybody can talk. Hi, Adam. Your mind, or the mind, is a cruel master. It wants to dominate you and make sure your attention or your awareness is always pointed towards it. Spencer, you're upside down. It is always working there. And it's really, really hard to free yourself from the dominions of the mind. Vesselina seems uninhibited by her mind.
Only seems like that.
You know, when we're brought up, we spend the first 5 years of our life in a sense learning how to read, to answer questions, to play. And then we have anywhere from 12 to 20 years of schooling where it's all about learning from texts, how to speak English, how to speak German. Physics, chemistry, sociology. So many books. I know by the time I reached college, I couldn't stand reading anymore. And my college education was a kind of hit or miss thing because I couldn't maintain concentration on the material. None of it interested me. And what happened one day, many years ago, is I just started watching the mind, which brings up the problem, who am I that's watching the mind? But the mind, indeed, after you watch it for a while, seems alien. It's not really me. It's something that claws for my attention, for me to pay attention to it. And the mind is very complicated. It has the most complex and demanding standards for ourselves. It sets our goals in life, if they have any. But as I watch the mind, I see that the self-talk that goes on all day long in my mind was essentially trivial. Remember that comedian with that segment on Laughing, Deep Thoughts with Handy or something like that? Well, in our daily lives, I dare you to find any deep thoughts in what your mind tells you all day long. It's usually useless chatter, such as when you're with a friend or family, more so family than friends. It just talks all day long, comments on the environment and yourself and what you want and all that kind of thing. It's very prosaic. And I realized that the mind really has no place in my life. It nailed me to everyday life. To the events of the day, what I was going to do in the evening or the next day. It always had me focusing on the trivia of life, which we all think is so important for a while. So, what happens if we can free ourselves from our minds? And the freedom comes not by destroying the mind or even slowing it down, but just really when you find out it has nothing to offer worth listening to. It's like the babbling of a 6-year-old that's going on constantly. And I have better things to do than listen to my inner 6-year-old. For example, I can just relax and move from thinking to being. And what an enormous difference that makes. Just to feel your body, to feel your breath, to feel the room around you, to feel your inner energies, feel energies moving within the body. And after observing them for a long time, to find that which I call the life force at the center of my being, which is the experience of being present. That's one way of putting it. I'm alive. I'm conscious. I'm aware of the inner aspects of my being, including my feeling of my body, my feeling of being present, And when we dive into that, there are other levels of being that we run into. We descend deeper and deeper into our experience of emptiness or nothingness. Until we descend so far that we're not aware of the world anymore. And it becomes a kind of waking sleep. It's a very powerful state. When you're in it, you could also be almost like a dead man. But you're aware of your own inner power, like a dynamo. It's that inner power which is closest to being unconscious. It's a very heady feeling to feel that. The power of silence. The power of stillness. And now we realize why we want the mind to go. Because it distracts us from this deep inner stillness that is so profound. So we practice meditation, which is segmented in time. I always suggest 25-minute sessions and at least 5 minutes between sessions, once or twice a day. Sit in front of a wall. Keep your eyes partially open, watching the floor in front of you. And as you get quieter and quieter, the feeling of found power will increase in you. For a while during your development, you may feel the energies in your own body, ones that flow inside, up the spine, up the center of your body, from your heart outwards into your fingers. And you can feel them vibrate when they pose each other like this. And that's the beginning of feeling energies in your body. And for a while, you may become absorbed in those energies. But the interest goes away after a while. And you can settle back into the silence of just being. And when you do this, your mind is lost. It will not present itself to you. Not during meditation. And you learn the joys of silence. And you also learn that the mind should not have an essential place in your life. It shouldn't be there as the dominant principle, guiding your every action and every decision. That work should be relegated to your deep self, which does not think, but is always guiding you. And in that silence, you find such peace and this power of the silence. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Already as you are, you're the master of your own universe. Even though there is no master detected. You, by your very existence, has created a world, the world of phenomena. And Robert says that world is not real. It's only phenomenon. And the reality or the subject is the noumena. That's you in silence, in resting, which is the antipole of worldly activity. It's the resting inside, deeply, in the subject. The one and only subject for you, which is experienced by everybody when they're still in the same way. Although most people never enter those states of stillness that you can achieve with meditation or silencing your mind. Or if they do them, it's so brief that they don't know what to make of it. But if you spend your life being aware first of your mind, and then of how useless the mind is to you in most things, you gain a freedom from it. Plus, the still power of your own silent being. A place of peace and of power of rest that only grows more profound the more you experience it. There's nothing to learn here at all. The mind is utterly helpless at the level of being. And here you are, enjoying your own beingness and how you experience that, how you experience the silence. And the silence grows increasingly powerful the more you practice it. You become transfixed by the power of the silence. Just like was Ravana for years after his losing his mind. For years, he slept on the floors of temples or in basements. People saw his helplessness as a sign of deep attainment, and they tended his body. Who here has the courage to do absolutely nothing? Not even to care about what happens to your body. You can aid the entry into silence by imagine the center of your attention, the focus drops from the region behind your eyes downward into your chest and heart and gut. Just by imagining that your attention is dropping, you can feel the power of that silence growing until you're entirely fascinated by the power of your own silence, by the majesty of your own silence, just by the purity of your own silence. It's just a small step from here to wanting to be forever in that pit of silence inside of yourself, the source, itself resting in itself. For me, it manifests in everyday life. As a desire to be still. And the happiness and contentness I feel being and doing nothing. It's always disturbed. Something always comes along to disturb it. But when you regard that as your primary state, it has a very powerful effect on your life. And the objects of your attention will change. You will no longer think about your career, your material possessions, the amount of money you have in your bank account. Instead, you're going to focus on the fundamental experiences of yourself in various situations. Silent meditation in your own house. What you experience of yourself when driving the car. What you experience of yourself at the beach. I'm experiencing irritation at my own lungs. They're itchy. And you now move through life sort of not moved by the external aspects of it, whether it's at the beach, downtown, on the train, or at a plane. Instead, it's how you experience that beingness in you all the time. And that beingness grows ever more calm and settled. You really don't want to move. You become the laziest person around by far. You no longer care about a mission in life. Your cares now in everyday life are about your partner, maybe your parents, definitely your cats and dogs. And you've lost all that vigorous concentration on the events in the world. You're no longer struggling to make a mark in the world. You're not worried about tests next week. You're not worried about the stock market or Bitcoin or blockchains or carburetors. Or who the president is, and what he is or she is doing. And as you leave the world alone, you find out more and more that the world leaves you alone. It's like the world loses interest in you. Because you've lost interest in the world. The world is something to be interested in until you're 25 or 30 years old. After that, you should just be interested in yourself, your own beingness, your own existence. Naturally, this is not a philosophy that should be taught to children. It would halt their development. And you have to be fully developed before you're capable or desire to be free of your mind. These teachings you'll hear from no one else. Not in such a blunt way as in me. I tell you, just relax. Let go of the world. Go to the center of your own existence. The place where the world is created in you. The substrate. And rest there. How marvelous to be free of the world. How marvelous it is to be free of concern about your body. I'm not saying that you should just forget about your health, but don't be obsessed by it all the time. The body is not of lasting existence. It's going to die. But if your interest in the world dies before your body dies, you will attain such freedom as you'd never imagined. My cat is snoring in the most delightful way. I have two cats that snore. So learn how to fall into yourself. I practice it mostly when I'm practicing that by just imagining that I'm falling backwards into my imaginary self behind. I don't need to do that anymore. All I have to do now is go to my center and find the beingness level. where you can feel the humming of life throughout your whole body as a kind of really light and rapid pulsations. And if you go deeper than that, you're in samadhi. And there existence stops. You exist, all right. You're aware of non-existence. And you rest in non-existence. And you find freedom from the need to always be existing. Because not existing is so comfortable. And yet, you so love your pets and the people around you, you'll do anything to keep them alive. Their life is precious. And in a sense, every day, you're worshiping the life in them. By stroking the cat, the dog. By wishing them no harm and comfort and no bothering. You want them to have the peace that you have. And soon you'll see them manifesting that peace yourself. You'll watch your cat stretch out and reach an unimaginable length that you didn't think possible for them. As they relax totally, their body relaxes. And it gets longer and longer and longer. And you touch them. Touch their belly and feel them breathe. Feel their life against your hand. Do that with your partner too. Feel the life in him or her. Find yourself worshiping that life in the other. Worship the life in your cats and dogs. In your parents, in your siblings, and your offspring. You become a devotee of life. All living beings are worshipped. Except for Donald Trump. We have to have some exceptions that prove the rule. I guess he's okay. Although I can't imagine somebody like him spending all day long figuring out ways to break the law so he makes more money. Stealing top secret documents, holding on to them, waiting to sell them to Russia for whatever they'll give him. Maybe they'll make him mayor of Moscow if he gives them enough secrets. Then he can bitch about how run down the Kremlin is, like he bitched about the White House. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. You're complete as you are. You don't have to get any more degrees. You don't have to read another book in your life. All you want to do is be silent inside of yourself. I remember Robert so well. In a group, he was totally silent. He would be off in the corner, alone, eating by himself, when everybody else was busy talking to each other. I remember being in Mount Baldy Zen Center on the cold, wintry days with the wind blowing outside. And this is the time off we have after a session. And everybody's happy and making noise and eating or drinking. You never dream of the time that it will come where your soul desires to be let alone, to enjoy yourself as you are. Robert was always silent. He hardly ever initiated conversations, except when he thought he had to because of the circumstances. He finished conversations by driving everybody else into silence with his silence. You felt that anything you might say or do would disturb his silence. And with that thought in mind, you didn't do it. You just remained silent yourself. Such was the effect of Robert. He was the most ordinary man imaginable. A 68-year-old man, mostly bald, but with the remainder of his head, the hair growing out wildly. He always wore a white shirt of some sort, an undershirt or pullover. and gray or white sweats on the bottom. He didn't wear socks, as I remember, because he had a hard time putting them on. He was quite limited in what he could do because of his Parkinson's. He watched television a lot when I was with him. I think that's the way he could be alone without people bothering him, because they'd be listening to the program or the movie. It seems the mood is broken now because so many of you are moving now. Has my talking agitated you? Does anybody have any comments or have any questions? Adam, do you have any?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm really trying to, I know I've mentioned this before, but find a way to practice the silence being my primary state in life, where it seems that everything is trying to drag me in the opposite direction, especially
Yes.
right now. It seems very challenging. And I just not sure quite how to figure that out yet.
Okay. Don't be obsessed with silence. If the world demands your attention right now because of something going on with someone in your world, something, let it take your attention and deal with it. And then afterwards, get back to your silent state. If you force yourself to be silent, it really tightens you up, and your silence will be of a lower quality. So give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and the rest give up to yourself.
Okay.
Anybody else? Jay?
I don't know, something today, that everything that you said was more profound, more perfect. Most of the time I make the mistake of commenting or trying to comment, but I don't have anything to say. I'm just, if I can do what you said, if I can follow what you said, if I can put the world down and leave these things alone and just resonate in silence, if I can say it that way, then I feel that I can take, my takeaway is the grace in every word that you shared with me today. And I love you more for every word. And I more than that, I can't say, because it's just the triviality, well, I'm saying more. Forgive me. I love you.
It's really nice to have an audience that appreciates what you have to say. And I thank you for that.
Oh, gee.
Mark, I'm sure, has something to say. He always does.
Not really. It's really hard commenting on this, especially considering what I've already commented on in the past. It's hard to add something new. But basically, what you teach is my practice, and has been my practice for a long time. And abiding from my core, abiding from the substratum, from what really is the self, as opposed to all the attachments to the mind, all the attachments to survival strategies that are disguised as rationality. All that is seen as a trap. And I abide below that into the pure beingness, which is, I've always maintained that this path is basically an intuitive path. Because what is intuition? It's what you are when the mind is not interfering with its tentacles. When you're rooted in your feeling and your substratum. So yeah, I have nothing more to add than that, but things are going well here.
Eddie. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, Eddie. This is not a command performance. But if you feel something boiling up inside of you, like a desire to tell me to go fuck myself, what a welcome change that would be. Raghu, anything today?
Even Raju, I don't know if there was another.
Even what?
Did you mean Raju?
Yeah.
Oh,
What did I say?
actually, I heard, as I was closing my eyes, I heard Raghu. There is another, Raghu is another name, so that's why I didn't know if there was someone else in the group. So, but I often get that a lot too. More like the sauce Raghu, but no, I think every word was like when you hit the nuclei of something, how it sort of dispels. That's how every word was. But end of the day, silence has no word. So as you're traversing through the part of the silence and the part of the gravity from the mind, and whether you're slowing down or whether you're feeling like you're distancing, end of the day, that's the feeling that I'm able to get, and in that the completeness is constantly feeling. So well, when you say complete, it cannot evolve because completeness is already complete, but it is just every time you reach that, you just feel a little more fuller or complete. And I don't want to put any more words than that, but I only want to say one last thing is that the simplicity of this complexity is what is unique in how you really put it at the end. And then I don't think anybody can do that.
You know,
Anybody seen do that. So for that, we are very, very fortunate.
I listen to other teachers. And for the life of me, I often don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because they talk about things in an abstract way. It's not down to earth, physical or somatic in any way. And I almost think of them as being aliens because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Even when Robert was talking about things, I just started spacing out. When he talked about Brahman, or becoming the totality of consciousness. But some teachers are so complex in a way and abstract. I kind of know that they have no idea about the power of silence because they're still talking and not with a simple language that's very experiential, but about etheric things, equating spirituality with etheric experiences and existence. And I can't listen. I don't understand them. But the way I talk is so simplistic. Even my cats understand me. And more or less, they're the only things that matter to me in my daily life. I see no need for abstractions whatsoever. Let's instead talk about our experiences of ourself, how we experience ourselves, which takes the focus away from mind and focuses instead on our daily experience, especially when we go deeper in ourselves and encounter the silence within and the levels of beingness that we go through on the way to silence. For example, the feeling of being alive in our bodies. It's really hard to talk about that and find the words for that. So I call it beingness. But I can understand how not 1 out of 20 people will have the same meaning for beingness as I do, or the sense of presence. Those are kind of abstractions still. Just immerse yourself in yourself. By focusing your attention on the simple experience of sitting in a chair, being quiet. For me, it's often a time of having to fight my impulse to watch television or to surf the internet and find things of interest to watch or read about. But once I turn within, it's bliss. Anybody else have something to say? Okay. I love you all. And let me turn this over to somebody that will continue in the modality of seeking silence. And let's see who we have. Cassie and Ian. Take over and drive them into silence. Drive everybody into silence.
Shut up, everybody.
There you go. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ed.